looks like a decorative succulent, but inside is a chemical system scientists are still trying to understand, and it's not alone. Across the world's deserts, ordinary-looking plants are producing compounds that affect the heart, the brain, cancer cells, and even fear itself. The deeper researchers look, the stranger these plants become. Number 1. Adenium obesum. The swollen trunk succulent with rose-pink flowers. It fills hotel lobbies and kitchen windowsills across 4 continents. Inside that bloated gray trunk is a latex sap loaded with heart-targeting compounds. The same class cardiologists use in very precise doses to regulate a failing heart. Here's the thing, that's not a coincidence. For generations across the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, hunters dipped arrowheads into adenium sap. Not because they stumbled onto it, because they'd worked it out. Without a single laboratory, they understood that this sap went after the heart. Not the lungs, not the liver, the heart specifically. An animal struck by a treated arrow doesn't collapse immediately. It keeps moving. The dose is lethal, but the body doesn't know it yet. Then the heart stutters. Then it stops. But that's not what's really happening. This plant isn't just toxic. It's running a precision operation. When scientists finally got inside, they found something strange. Adenium obesum doesn't produce one heart-targeting compound. It produces at least 8, each one hitting the same target at a slightly different angle, different strength, different timing. Together, they regulate the dose response in a way no single compound can. The plant built its own precision delivery system. Scientists who studied it used a word you almost never hear in biochemistry. They called it sophisticated. One plant, one target, a decade to map. The next entry targets something more specific still. Number 2. Euphorbia tirucali. A succulent that looks exactly like a bundle of bright green pencils. Thin cylindrical stems, no leaves, none at all. It gets planted as a living fence across South Asia and Southeast Asia because it grows fast, and nothing eats it. Nothing eats it. Break a stem and white latex oozes out, causes chemical burns on skin, temporary blindness if it reaches the eyes. In Tanzania, people used it to stun fish. In India, healers applied it to tumors for centuries. Documented, ancient, dismissed as folklore for most of that time. It is not folklore. A compound pulled from a close cousin of this plant is now a prescription drug, FDA approved. It treats precancerous skin lesions. Abnormal cells start dying, the surrounding skin largely untouched. That's not how most cancer treatments work. Most cancer treatments are carpet bombing. This is a sniper. Scientists started testing the Pencil Cactus's own compounds. What they found was interesting. Certain cancer cells seemed more vulnerable than others. Nobody knows exactly why yet, but researchers in 2 countries are still showing up to the lab because of a fence plant. That tells you something. This isn't really about a cactus. It's about a hidden system that predates the science used to study it. Number 3. Datura wrightii. White trumpet flowers, the size of a hand, opening after dusk across the Sonoran and Mojave deserts. They open at night, they close before noon. Pollinated almost exclusively by hawk moths, the only insects with a proboscis long enough to reach the nectar at the base of the tube. The plant and the moth evolve together. Each one needs the other to exist. Strangely beautiful, also deeply dangerous. Eat the leaves, which have been mistaken for edible greens, and within an hour, dry mouth. Then the heart rate spikes. Then the pupils blow wide open in broad daylight. Then hallucinations, indistinguishable from reality, for hours. ER doctors in Arizona and New Mexico know this presentation by sight. Every summer, almost always someone who found the plant, looked it up, thought they understood it, and got the dose wrong. But here's where things get interesting. The same compounds that put people in the ER are saving lives in the next room over. One of those compounds is scopolamine. If you've ever worn a patch behind your ear to stop motion sickness, you've used it. Another is atropine. When someone's heart starts failing in an emergency room, doctors reach for it. Think about that for a second. The same plant growing beside a desert trail, the same chemistry. What's strange is that no lab has been able to reproduce what the plant does naturally. The ratio shifts with temperature, soil, age. The plant is doing something the lab still cannot replicate. 3 plants, 3 systems targeted, 3 medicines in use right now, and we're not halfway through. Number 4. Kalanchoe diagrammontiana, the mother of thousands. Gray-green serrated leaves, and along every margin, dozens of tiny plantlets lined up like teeth. Touch the leaf and they drop, each one roots. One plant can take over an entire garden bed in a single season. It's one of the most aggressive colonizers in the plant kingdom. And the inside of those leaves is genuinely strange. The compounds inside are toxic to cattle, sheep, and dogs. In South Africa, this has been documented since the 1800s. The animals develop a tremor, lose coordination. Then, the heart's electrical rhythm breaks down. But oddly, it doesn't kill instantly. The toxin accumulates. An animal can graze for days with no symptoms, and then the threshold is crossed. But that's not what's really happening. The same compound killing cattle may be the most precisely targeted anti-cancer signal scientists have found in any plant. Scientists weren't interested in this plant because it kills cells. Lots of things kill cells. What got their attention was something else. It seemed to know which cells to kill. Cancer cells collapse inward. Healthy cells beside them often don't. Now, that's a very different problem, and it's one scientists are still trying to understand. Healers in Africa, Asia, and the Americas were using this plant for centuries, independently, on 3 continents, none of them comparing notes. They all figured out the same thing. This plant does something useful. Scientists are still trying to work out exactly what. Here's the problem. The dose that tells a cancer cell to die is not far from the dose that does the same thing to a heart cell. That gap has to be widened. They're still working on it. The plantlets dropping off the leaf edges, the quiet colonization of a field, and inside each one, a molecule that human chemistry hasn't figured out how to use safely yet. This isn't really about a succulent. It's about a hidden precision that 3 continents of healers recognized, and science is still trying to catch up to. Number 5. Agave lechugia. Low, stiff-leafed, covering the limestone hillsides of the Chihuahuan Desert. Leaves narrow and blue-gray, tipped with a spine hard enough to punch through leather boots. If you've seen a photograph of that desert, you've seen this plant. You probably didn't know what it was. Animals that graze on it develop lechugulosis. The liver fails, the skin becomes hypersensitive to light. It deteriorates fast. Mexican ranchers have known about this for centuries, but the livestock story is not why pharmacologists are still looking at this plant. The evidence pointed somewhere else. What the agave turns out to be doing is targeting the cholesterol in cell walls. And here's the thing. Certain cancer cells carry unusually high cholesterol. So do certain drug-resistant bacteria. The agave compound hits those harder. Scientists started testing it against one of the biggest problems in modern medicine, MRSA, the infection that keeps finding ways around our antibiotics. And oddly enough, the agave didn't seem interested in every cell. It appeared to prefer certain targets. That's when researchers started paying attention. Because selective attack is rare. Very rare. Now here's what's genuinely strange. This plant doesn't make one of these compounds. It makes dozens of slightly different versions, minor variations on the same structure. No one knows if that's random, or if the plant is maintaining a library, each version calibrated for a slightly different target. A plant on a limestone hillside, quietly running what might be the most sophisticated antimicrobial research program on Earth. 5 plants, none of them rare, growing in places people drive past every day. The last one is different. The compound it makes should not exist in a plant at all. Everything so far has followed a logic. Plant under pressure, toxic compound, evolutionary reason. There's always a reason. The final plant produces a compound that belongs to a class of molecules associated with animal nervous systems. Not plant chemistry, animal chemistry. When the first paper appeared, the reviewers asked for it to be retested. It was. The compound was confirmed. And nobody has agreed on why a small succulent in the South African Karoo is making it. For a long time, scientists insisted it wasn't happening at all. Number 6. Mesembryanthemum tortuosum, known as Canna or Scaletium, a low, sprawling succulent, small, fleshy leaves, spreading across the gravel flats of the South African Karoo like it's in no hurry at all. San hunter-gatherers fermented and chewed preparations of this plant for thousands of years. Elevated mood, reduced anxiety, mild euphoria. In the 1990s, South African chemists finally isolated the active compound. What they found was mesembrine. At first, that didn't seem remarkable. Then somebody looked at what it was doing, and the room got very quiet. Because the compound was targeting the same system used by some of the most successful antidepressants ever developed. A plant growing in gravel, doing something pharmaceutical companies spent decades trying to achieve. And somehow, that still wasn't the strangest part. Mesembrine isn't a simpler version of Prozac. It appears to be doing something current antidepressants can't. Then researchers noticed something they weren't expecting. The plant wasn't just affecting mood. It appeared to be turning down fear itself. Not eliminating it, not suppressing it, turning the volume down. A plant people had been chewing in the Karoo for thousands of years, quietly changing the way the brain responds to threat. And that's the sort of sentence that makes scientists stop and look twice. The San communities who used this plant for generations were eventually included in a formal benefit-sharing agreement. Their knowledge had commercial value. It took advocacy to make sure they shared in it. The gravel flat, the low, spreading leaves, and inside them something a desert culture understood thousands of years before the science existed to explain it. This isn't really about a succulent. It's about who already knew and who is only now catching up. 6 plants, 6 toxins, each one targeting a different system with a precision our best chemists are still trying to understand. We tend to think pharmacology is something humans invented, laboratories, clinical trials, peer review, but it's also something that 2 billion years of pressure figured out first, in a gravel flat, on a limestone hillside, in a hotel lobby planter. You didn't find a decorative succulent. You found a research program that has been running longer than our species. Maybe that's the strangest part. We call these plants primitive, simple, decorative, and yet inside them are solutions we're still trying to understand. Not because we're less intelligent, because they've been running experiments for millions of years longer than we have. The desert isn't empty. It's full of answers. We're just beginning to learn the questions. In part 2, we look at the succulents that scientists initially thought they had analyzed incorrectly, because some of the compounds they found weren't supposed to be there. The plants are ordinary. The chemistry is not. If you're not subscribed, this is the moment. You won't find this content recommended unless you're already here. Leave a comment. Which entry surprised you most? The cardiac compound that still outperforms synthetic chemistry? The serotonin mechanism hunter-gatherers understood millennia before any lab existed? Or the anti-cancer signal hiding inside a plant farmers used as a fence because nothing would eat it? I'll read them.